So why am I doing this? I'm starting this podcast because we all have a story and finances play a part in our struggles and successes. If we can learn from the many mistakes many others have made, we can make sure that more of us are successful. Like the quote says, to increase the chances of success, we must increase our failure rate. To be honest, I failed a ton. I will bring people from all walks of life, but mostly service members. If you have a story you would like to share, do not hesitate to reach out. From the go, like and subscribe to this podcast so many others can benefit. Hey, how's it going? Today we have Captain Ronelle Say from the 552nd, right?
Yes, sir.
552nd Training Squadron in Tinker Air Force Base. He is an air battle manager. This is one of those jobs that I find fascinating in the Air Force. He's a captain right now, and I think it's really cool, right? And I'm asking you a lot about this. Him and I met through the Financial Enabler. We've talked a lot about finance, and we've been talking for a while now, and I'm pumped to have you here to share your story. Yeah. Just so you guys know, he's like a fitness guru. So if you're in Tinker Air, please try this guy. Yeah, the dude's stud. But yeah, man, super pumped to have you. For right off the gate, tell us a little bit to kind of correlate to the audience. What is the ABM, and where has the Air Force taken you so far?
That's actually still a tough question to answer, even if you ask some of my peers who do this job.
Yeah.
If you're a sports person, the best way to put it is I am a defensive and offensive coordinator concurrently, depending on like what the situation is. And that can apply for air battles or on the ground using airplanes, or even naval battles also using airplanes. It really just depends on what the mission set is, but those are some of the things we train to. It sounds fancy. It's just all part of the training. It's nothing insane. So
I mean, it sounds fancy when you think about it, like in how you said, right? Like,
yeah,
most people can say, who is it? I'm drawing a blank. Tom Brady. But
yeah.
Most people cannot mention Tom Brady's offensive coordinators. But
Yeah.
Tom Brady would probably not be as great without the offensive coordinators. So that's a great, fascinating way to say it. With that, I almost forgot. Here's the shout outs for this podcast, the Honor Foundation and my school. It's kind of pretty cool, the Defense Nuclear Weapons Schools. Almost forgot. Let's get back to it. So that's a really, really good way to tie that. And for what I understand, you guys do it, like you said, on the ground and out of planes, also out of planes. Is there any other way that you guys do it?
Yeah, we could be on ships, but that's incredibly rare, at least for right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is another way, if you will.
I'm willing to bet there's not a whole lot of ABMs in the Air Force asking to go be on a Navy ship either.
No, absolutely not. They hate it.
Yeah. Now, with that, how does that correlate to, well, I understand that JTACs are more terminal air control, like finishing the attack, but how does the skills correlate? Since most of my audience is ground force guys, how would you tie it?
So the JTAC, so we actually talked to JTACs. So before, like, they receive the plane, we're coordinating with them, and they'll ask us like, "Hey, what's the status of this A-10, if you will?" Like when I was doing that at CENTCOM, it was very common to ask those questions, and then we have ties with our capabilities to reach out to higher level, if you will, and that we can send them back that feedback that they're asking for. So very common for us to work with JTACs.
And what was the name of the JTAC equivalency, but as a pilot?
Oh, FAC-A, probably.
FAC-A.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you guys do the same thing with FAC-As.
We could do that. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. Now, how does it differ from the officer side to the enlisted side in that career field? Or do officers do all of the ABM work?
It depends. So on the ground, at least in the Air Force side, we have, like, we call them WDs, which just stands for weapons directors. So those are the guys and gals you're probably talking to on the radio that you're like hearing. And the officer side of that, on that ground station, are the ones like supervising. So you may not necessarily be talking to them, but they're working behind the scenes kind of deal. They're more in the supervisory, overall management kind of deal, typically.
Got it.
In terms of the like AWACS, which is what I'm on. The bulk of it is air battle managers like myself. However, we do have our enlisted force that is supporting us to execute the mission. So
Awesome.
yeah.
That's really cool. And for that, how long is your school and is it a Tinker?
No, well, so the initial training, it's UABMT, so undergraduate air battle management training. That's held at Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah, exactly. And living on the beach sounds like a terrible time. But so when I was going through, it was about a little under a year. I think it was like 11 months or so. But there's some changes to the duration of the training, just given with our shift to our adversaries, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I think last I heard it was like 6 months or so. But I'm not too sure on that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then after that, you would either branch out to a ground station, or you'll go to where I'm at, Tinker.
Okay. And where have you been stationed in your time in the Air Force?
Station, I've been Tyndall for obviously the training I just mentioned, and then Oklahoma or Tinker Air Force Base, and then I was at Okinawa for Kadena Air Base for about 2 years.
Love it. Okinawa's
I miss it a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
For all the Okinawa haters, just go there, right? Because
It is.
Marines always hate on it. It's like, just go. It's awesome. Yeah.
I tell you, it's better than being stuck here in Oklahoma. So.
You know what's funny? When I went to Japan, I kind of saw the writing on the wall that they wanted me to leave MARSOC because of enablers at that point. We could serve 5 years. Some people got to stick around. And I was like, I know that I'm the guy that's been here the longest. It's 29 Pops or Oki. And I'm like, I'd rather go to Japan than go to 29.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Let's do this. And that was awesome. Now, and kind of tying it to that, you're a captain right now. What have you in your time seeing it as I don't know how much leadership you do. What have you seen that things that have highlighted for you in the financial world with enlisted and officers? Do you see any trends?
Yeah. So, I mean, just you see the stereotypes of like, your young airmen, in this case, so like E1 to E3s and stuff, buy these like, nice muscle cars, at incredibly high interest rates, probably. So that's a stereotype I've seen for sure. Actually be done. So,
yeah. What about with officers? Anything any trends you've noticed? Or are all officers fiscally sound?
No, all officers are not fiscally sound. I will admit that I made dumb lieutenant decisions, when I first like got to Florida, for training. So my parents were like, "Hey, save money," but I'm first generation American, so like their concept of saving money was just like they're in the savings and call it a day. That's good enough. But that's not their fault because like they, barely learned English.
Yeah.
So because of that, like I didn't know either, and I never really thought anything of it. In terms of learning financial anything really.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like going to Florida and like talking to like my classmates, to like getting all this stuff, and I'm like, dude, I've never had money in my life. I'm gonna apply for these credit cards and buy a bunch of fucking bullshit I don't need.
Yeah.
I look at the bill, it's like $5,000. I'm like, oh shit. And eventually I paid it off, obviously, but it's just like it's something that I had to learn the hard way. Yeah. My parents tried to tell me, but it's like, well, I'm getting paid. I ain't tripping, But I was tripping later when I had to start paying for all that stuff. So,
let me ask you, what's your heritage?
Filipino and Chinese.
Filipino Chinese. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and obviously there's stereotypes, and I'm asking this question because I have a friend that highlights it. He's Chinese.
Okay.
And do you see difference in how people see money in the cultures of Filipinos versus the Chinese of how they spend? Because I've heard that the Chinese, especially, we even hear that they're very long-term thinkers and they are really good at saving. Is that something that was a trend in your upbringing?
So for mine specifically, the goal was always to save and always try to be conservative and frugal with your money. And so in some capacities we did do that, but it was hard because for my parents, they were working in retrospect, they were working, paycheck to paycheck because, well, they're raising me, and then I have an older sister. They're also trying to put us through college eventually. So,
Yeah.
um, they tried, but like, obviously, like, you could only get paid so much, if you will. And like, my dad didn't really have any educational background. He only finished middle school in the Philippines at most. And then, he left for America and got here when he was 18. Didn't know any English, didn't know anything. Of no fault of his own, obviously, but, fortunately, we made it happen, or he made it happen earlier, and my mom too. And then my mom, she grew up pretty well, in the Philippines. She was actually pretty well off. She literally had a chauffeur take her to school. So complete 180 from my dad. But so they tried growing up, they tried to instill like these financial lessons, but it was very broad and there was no like tool to tell me how to do that. It's just like, hey, when you get a job, so when you join the Air Force, save your money, don't buy things you don't need. But I'm like, dude, I got this check. I never seen a check before. Like, god damn,
Yeah.
So I was trying to do that. Obviously, I didn't do it well off the gate. And I had to learn on my own what saving looked like, what tools do I need to use. And even to this day, I'm still learning, what are other tools to make, more and more and grow that and diversify, if you will.
Yeah.
So
that's actually not surprising. It's the word I'm looking for. It's fascinating to see that parents meant to save, and they probably did save because they did put you through school.
Yeah.
But they did it at the cost of them living paycheck to paycheck, which is crazy. What school did you go to?
Fresno State. Go Bulldogs.
Go Bulldogs. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So either way, right? They allocated the money for you to do that, which is awesome. And I've said it here before. I always default to thinking that parents did the best they could, whether you had a silver spoon or they were using food stamps, right? Parents did the best they could, and all we can do is try to be better, right? Which clearly we know that you're doing. So that's a lot of your upbringing. Yeah, I mean, we got to do it, right? So that was your upbringing. Now, and I want to ask if you're open to share what was the kind of bullshit that you spent on that led you to be like, oh, I'm spending, or was it just the partying? Because God knows Tyndall will do that.
Yeah. It was basically like, for the most part, it was food, actually.
We were just talking about this. Yeah. Ronelle got
food. Yeah. So it's food and just like, it was hot as fuck out there.
Yeah.
So we would go, partying and drink on the beach, like, or day drink and stuff. So I'd buy like Yeti gear. I don't need a ton of it, but here we are, now I have a ton of it. So, those were like things. And then other thing I don't even know, probably clothes that I don't even wear anymore, probably.
Yeah.
So,
and that's something that caught my attention. I was trying to see, because obviously the audience, right? We come from all backgrounds, right? The military is a big old melting pot.
Yeah.
That you were trying to save, and you came to, by the point that you were an officer, a lot of kids come from that. Whether you're Chinese Filipino, a Hispanic kid from LA, or some white dude from, Brownsville, Texas, right?
Yeah.
You come having no money or very little money to all of a sudden, wham, you have a ton of money, and it's like we just start blasting it. So kind of to the audience is that it doesn't matter where you come from. We all deal with very similar things financially.
Yeah.
And it's what you do with it. Now, when you were in Okinawa, because I know you've been through CENTCOM, you said that, how does per diem work for you as air crew? And for that matter, do you guys get a lot of per diem, or is it all since you do your mission and came back to Okinawa that you did never get a lot of that?
Yeah. So for me specifically, and those, at least on the Air Force who are stationed in Kadena or in Japan in general, you don't get per diem per se if you're stationed so in this case, like I was stationed at Kadena. I did not get per diem being in Kadena. Instead, I got man, I'm blanking out on the acronym. It's like overseas.
Yes, that extra pay that we all get. But
Yeah.
did you
So,
guys ever travel to other bases and get per diem for that?
oh yeah. So if we would, so like when I would go to Alaska, which is pretty much every year, we would go to Alaska every year from Japan, and I would get per diem for Alaska. And I think it was kind of bullshit, but they only gave us like, I think it's like $60 a day or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm
And
like,
maybe I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm maybe asking
no,
this
you're good.
question wrong. Is on individual missions, would you guys leave Okinawa, land somewhere, get per diem for the stay? Is that a thing?
Oh, that is a thing, but we typically don't. We try not to do that.
Okay.
Like yeah, we typically try to come back to
Got it.
to Kadena. So generally something not good, whether it's weather related, like maybe there's weather over the island, so we have to go divert. So like South Korea could be an option. In which case they would get per diem. They would get all filed through DTS and stuff. So
Yeah. Okay, got it. That answers my question. With that, in your time in Okinawa, obviously, Okinawa is very easy to spend a lot of money, but there's a lot of benefits, and I mean, most people that are in Okinawa are incredibly busy.
yeah.
Did you save money in Okinawa, or did you live it up?
I saved money. Yeah. What helped was, well, at least while I was there, the dollar was pretty strong.
Yeah.
And compared to the yen, so like I saved money, but also I would like look at a price in yen, and I'm like, oh, that's like 25% off. You know what I mean? Because I'm doing the conversion in my head. So
Yeah.
but overall, I definitely saved money, even though like I'm back in Oklahoma, right? Oklahoma's relatively cheap compared to other states across the nation. But I was actually saving more being in Okinawa than I am being here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That I did not expect. Wow, that's
Yeah.
surprising. Now, so going to that you've saved, and I always like asking this question: what are things that, besides food, clearly we already covered that, that are non-negotiables for you that you will always spend top dollar on?
Okay. It's a little weird. Well, it's not really weird, but so there's this brand called Taco Fish.
Taco fish?
Tag Hunt Fish, THF.
Taco. Okay, yeah.
And so I love their shorts.
Okay.
And they always do a drop like every month or something.
Yeah.
And I'll get the newsletter, I'll check it out and stuff. So if you ask my girlfriend this, she'll tell you like, yeah, he's on the ball, like getting these drops. So
Now, should I stop using Lululemon and go to Taco and Fish?
if you like thigh level shorts, like yeah, I would go.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
the designs are better.
Okay, you see that? Now we got it, right? And obviously we're not getting paid for any of these, unless they want to. If you guys want to get us paid for this,
Yeah, if you want to hook us up, that'd be dope.
it's totally awesome, right? I love that. Now, in your time traveling and the money you've made, do you feel that you've maximized deployment money, your air crew pay, or do you feel that it was like it didn't matter, you just spent it?
So initially it was like spending. I mean, I had some student loans that I was, paying, and like when I was a lieutenant and stuff.
Yeah.
But as I progressed through my career, there were things I kept learning, for like saving strategies. So whether it was like when I first got to Tyndall, I had no idea, at least back then, it's different now, but I had no idea back then that like when you're contributing to the TSP, it defaulted to the G fund. So I thought I was being smart and like I'm contributing to my retirement. Awesome.
Yeah.
What I didn't know was like it went straight to the G fund. And it wasn't until like I'm like halfway through training, I think it was either one of like my peers or another instructor was like, dude, hey, make sure you check that you move those funds out of the G fund and put it where you want it, unless you want it there. And I was like, oh damn, I didn't know that. So then I moved it. Now I think it like defaults to the life cycle fund for new service members.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Okay.
Which is good. So
you did that change. Are you open to share what are your strategies nowadays? Like, are you allocating to a life cycle or to a specific funds?
I allocate to specific funds, so CS and I. I'm a lot. I think it's like 70% or something like that off the top of my head for C, and then like 20 for S, and then the rest in I. something
Okay.
like that.
And how much do you contribute?
10%.
10%. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Now, have you seen people, are you still meeting people that have not moved out of the G Fund?
No, actually, I don't think I have.
Okay, that's good.
I
I'm glad
think,
to hear that.
yeah, when I was going through it, I was asking other like lieutenants, like, "Do you guys know that?" And they're like, "Oh shit, no." And then they did it, so it was like, "All right, we're all we're all moving it together, we're all learning together," kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And so with the military, has the military influenced how you see money? Whether it's how you spend, how you saved, or yeah, let's start with that question first.
yeah, I'm actually thankful. I know a lot of like whether they're active members right now or they're veterans. Like we're all gonna like bitch and moan and complain together about like what the military could do better, and that's always gonna be a thing. But one thing I am thankful for that the just being in the military in general is like opportunities like this right here, or like just running into classmates or instructors that had pulled me aside. They were like, "Dude, do you know what a Roth IRA is?" Like, and this was like when I was like a lieutenant again, right? And I'm like, "No, what the hell is that?" They're like, "Oh, dude, like you should probably open one up. Like it's for retirement." I'm like, "Oh, dang, like this is probably what my mom and dad were talking about. They just didn't know, you know." Or like opening up a brokerage account if you have other money to spare, if you're not like already contributing to other things in maximizing those avenues. So I was like, oh damn, I didn't know you could do that. And so I did that. So, and I wouldn't have done any of those things, I wouldn't have known any of those things had I not like just encountered smarter people than me that happened to be in the military. Like I don't know if I were a civilian that those helpful things would have happened to me.
And do you think that your civilian friends know about these things outside of you telling them?
I, I, yeah, I don't think they did. Like at least when I think about like my best friends from high school and stuff, or just like the small farm town that I'm from, like I think by the time that they found out, they're already like they were older than what I had already found out, because I'm learning this stuff and I was like straight out of college.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing it like 25 or older. Not that there's anything wrong with that for the audience that's listening to this.
No.
It started with nothing. So
Yeah, start whenever you start. But and that's a point that I've noticed that like in the military, we're almost intrusive in people's lives. So we're way more open to be like, hey, bro, do something better. And it's, I mean, you see it with working out, you see it with finances, but in the rest of the world, it seems, and I'm sure that there's people that are not, that people just do their own thing and nobody is telling them the other options. Let's not say better, just other options. Right. Yeah, which is very interesting. Do you think that even where you find yourself now, do you think that you're more financially savvy than your civilian friends?
yeah, I think so. Not that I'm like trying to like brag or anything.
No.
That, or I think that they're willing to take higher risks. I'll say that.
Really?
Yeah, in the sense of like I like reading things on Investopedia, and they're all about like diversification and all that stuff, and like just slow and steady, wins the race kind of deal. But I have friends that are like investing directly in companies, and I like that's not me because I'm not smart enough for that stuff. So to each their own. I don't try to sway them one way or the other. But when they tell me these certain companies, like look them up, and I'm like, they're not doing so good. But I try, but like it's up to them. So
yeah, I'm not I have a few individual stocks in my portfolios, but I'm generally, like you said, right? Like there's something to it, right? If Warren Buffett's saying it, and why do we take those risks, right? And you and I have talked about like the other more advanced strategies that like nothing is perfect, but if you can allocate some of your pots of money to be like, here, you're gonna cruise no matter what. It's good, right? But people shoot down other strategies. Now, as an officer, I'm assuming that there's, I guess, comparatively speaking with your peers, do you feel that you've made more money than they have?
with those in the service, I would say no. I think we're
No,
all,
sorry, compared to your civilian friends.
so okay. Yeah, but the reason is not because of how I do it. It's because of when I just started earlier,
Oh, wow.
and then that's um, and I think that's like a big thing, and like because a lot of my friends from back home, like they didn't know either. Like we all come from like a background of like, dude, most of our parents like were just living paycheck to paycheck and trying to put us all through school, and then they did that fortunately. And so now it's like they were telling us to save, but they didn't necessarily say how. Mainly because they didn't know how,
So,
Um,
so your experience is across the board with all your peers. Yeah.
yeah, I would say so, yeah.
Now,
And then they didn't start dabbling in it until like later because
yeah.
they didn't start working till later.
Oh, that's okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
They started okay, and now do a lot because I see it with a lot of my peers. Right? There's obviously
Yeah.
the guys that are making a ton of money, no
Right.
doubt.
Yeah.
But I also see a lot of people that I see myself as a 20-year master sergeant, and I look at my civilian friends, and I'm making more money than they are, and it's like,
Mhm.
is the military? The military is not as bad as people make it out to be. This is not a recruiting pitch. I'm not saying like jump at the military because it's perfect,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
you're from it. But do you
Yeah.
see? How do you see the amount of income that you have compared to your civilian friends
Um, so
that you know of, right? Maybe you don't know.
yeah, so now because they've been in the jobs that they've been in now, I think we're kind of on par on like gross income.
Yeah.
But because of like I live in Oklahoma, they live in California. Like now we're talking, it's different. So I would say I probably make more, but that's just because the cost of living over there is incredibly
Yeah.
expensive. So
And I think you and I spoke about it. Did I tell you about that new tax that California is proposing?
was it the healthcare one or something like
The
that?
long-term care one. I'll
The
send
long
you
term
a
care.
link.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. It's supposed to be approved early January, and I'm like, guys, do something, please.
Yeah.
But whatever, people do whatever they want.
I know.
Now, and that's so to me. That's always interesting because I try to pass on nuggets of information, and I think some people take it how you did. I was like, I'll take this, I'll add it to the portfolio. But a lot of people are like, no, and I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
you're missing out. I just found out I might get denied for another one, but we'll see. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah.
So, what would you say are skills that the military gave you, not financial skills,
Uh,
skills, knowledge, experience that have helped you in the civilian world and or with your finances?
I'd say resources.
Mm.
I know that's not necessarily a skill per se.
Yeah.
But the resources and then the networking, which I know technically doesn't answer your question. It's not necessarily skills, but I don't think without those things I would have been able to like be smart about things.
What kind of resources? Or you talk about just the people the like smarter or more knowledgeable people that you met?
Yeah, that just like meeting smarter people and it wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna pull you aside and talk about finances. It was just like, casual conversation that happened to, turn into this like, oh dude, I didn't know that. You know? But then because of those things, it made me like go research on my own and like understand more and, like a Investopedia. I know I like mentioned it earlier, but that's like a huge resource that not necessarily the military gave me, but a service member happened to mention that to me, and they're like, I wouldn't have, looked it up or any of that stuff as an example. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's huge. So resources and which I'll take it as valuable because as I'm getting ready to leave, I'm starting to grow my LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
I reached out to you already, and I thought of it's like if every service member started our LinkedIn right now today. If you're 20 years old, start one right now, right, and just start friending everybody you know. You eventually it's going to work, right? And that machine is designed to connect those things, and you never know what
yeah,
resource you're going to get because
Yeah.
I just saw an article that there's this hidden savings account for senior enlisted and officers. And I'm like, oh, tell me more. I started reading, and they're talking about networking. It's all that we're talking about, because we can tap into people that we've known, that we met 20 years ago, and we have instant rapport, right? While in the civilian world, it almost doesn't carry as much because people are passers-by, but we have, I'm sure that there's somebody from your first duty station that you're like, if I text this guy right now, he's going to answer, right? And I think that is a huge edge that comes to the military, especially when we're trying to grow the civilian in professional world. Now, I know we've spoken a little bit about what you want to do, what you're thinking about doing in the future. Mm-hmm. Are you totally committed to committing your 20 years or longer in the Air Force?
If I can get into the Guard, yeah. I love wearing the uniform. It's not perfect by any means. I think we all know that.
Yeah.
But I do love serving my country, as cliche as it sounds. And just seeing the things we have to face has me concerned that I feel like I can contribute and help out in, deterring those things.
Yeah.
But, I'm also human, and I would eventually like to get, married and, raise a family and also be closer to mine. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally get you. Now, if you were to transition, what would you like to do in the civilian world?
I have too many ideas. So that's just why I wish there weren't age restrictions. But so one of the things is I would use my GI Bill, and then I'm still on the fence on there are three schools. So physical therapy, physician's assistant, and then dietitian.
Okay.
So I'm debating between those three schools if I were to go back to school. The other one, which is not related medically, is flying. I would
really.
I'm considering to get into become an airline pilot. So.
Wow. Do you wish you would have started with an with an aviation pilot contract in the Air Force?
They didn't. So at the time that I was going through, I commissioned through ROTC. And at the time that I was going through it, you had to be pretty competitive. And so in a way to do that, at least for the Air Force, is to have your PPL, which is your private pilot's license. But that's incredibly expensive, and I already didn't have any money. And I probably could have worked hard, to raise money. And someone probably can tell me that, but I didn't really want to be a pilot. For the sake of flying, it was more of that looks cool, or that pays a lot. So those were the drivers.
What are you doing as you're prepping to transition, right?
Oh yes.
And you already like nutrition and fitness. Are you doing anything with that already?
What I was saying earlier was no. So when I was at Tinker the first time, and then when I got to Kadena, I had some people ask me hey, can you help train me, or for this thing, or I want to lose X amount of weight or whatever. I'd be down to help them. They're part of the unit, and I want them to become more lethal in the same capacity you tried to do that, but through finances.
Right.
And so I would do a bunch of work, make these training programs, and then they just wouldn't show up. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to. I did all this stuff for you. I'm not even charging you because you're in my unit. I care.
Yeah.
And you're just okay. So no, I haven't really done anything on that.
Are you charging anybody? Are you charging people?
No, mainly because no one's asked. So
yeah. So if I asked and I showed up and follow your instruction, that would be cool.
Hey, if you're a service member, I'll take care of you.
That's what I'm talking about. It's funny you say that, because I talk a lot about being coachable to people, and for me, I realized how much I despise people that are not coachable. So when I worked out, and again, I realized later on in life that I could be fit despite never looking like it. I hate working out with people. I hate it because I would be like, hey guys, you guys want to go to the gym? And they're like, oh, I got to do a pre-workout, or I'm going to go to the bathroom, or blah, blah. And I'm like, Leah. So after a while, I've actually finally found, I like working out with two of my friends, and my current girlfriend is the few people on this planet that I enjoy working out with. But to what I was getting is that in finance, right? And you and I spoke about this, right? That
Right.
I know you may not know as much about this.
Right.
Here's something, trust me, right?
Yes.
And then people are like, well, what do you know? And I'm like, why did you ask in the first place? Like, why would you do something, ask for help, and then not listen, right?
Yeah.
Or ask for help and then not commit, right? Which
Right.
is, it blows my mind that people do that. And I think it's probably because you did it for free. If you would have charged them $1, they would have been like, I'm there. I am going to make I'm going to get my dollar's worth.
My money's worth, yeah.
Yeah. Which is crazy how humans are with that. So if you got into, would you ever want to own your gym, or do you see yourself more like in private practice?
Probably private, yeah.
Private?
But
Sure.
in an ideal world, like if money wasn't an issue, like I probably would do like a pretty dope gym, like to the degree of like we're gonna have our own professional chef, we're gonna have a dietitian, we're gonna have a full medical staff, like we're gonna have the whole gambit kind of deal. So it's not just trainers; it's like the whole. When you go to the gym, you're gonna have the whole thing.
Yeah. Are you gonna take on gym launch? Do a Hormozy?
Oh, I don't know about that. Probably not.
Bro, I mean,
At least not yet.
I mean, the dude's a multimillionaire. We might as well use what he does, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I could learn a thing or two.
Yeah. I actually bought his book. If you ever want it, I have a bunch of copies that I'm waiting to do a giveaway with, but I'll probably let you know. Yeah. So cool. And if you want to be a pilot, you want to fly airlines, is there anything else that appeals to you? What do you, outside, or better question, outside of working out, what other hobbies do you have?
I've actually got into judo. So judo's a hobby of mine now.
Okay. How often
Yeah,
do you, is it expensive?
I mean, I guess it depends on how you define expensive. I only pay for judo specifically $100 a month.
Yeah, that's not expensive.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I first got exposure to it when I was in college. It was one of my kines courses that like you had to have an activity, being a kines major, for that obvious reasons. And I was like, oh, dude, judo's cool. Judo sounds cool. Like I never got into martial arts until college because that was the opportunity. Because when I was growing up, that wasn't really a thing. They were in my town.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got exposed to it in in college, but then I didn't really pick it up until I got back here the second time here at Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad. That's cool. I did martial arts as a little kid, and I never went back to it. I realized I was soft, and dudes are gonna kick my butt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd rather fight with guns, right? Or
Also, yeah,
Yeah.
prefer that too.
That is way more fun. What would you say is the best and worst financial advice you ever gotten? And did I give it to you by any chance?
I think the best is probably just start early. Start as soon as you can.
Okay.
And
great.
that'll just go a long way. I mean, I think it's for math people out there, like we know that just looking at historical data, although that doesn't necessarily, guarantee future returns. So,
Yeah.
worse. Yeah. So some of my peers, we mentioned it earlier, but some of my, peers from back home would try to tell me like, dude, like you should invest in this specific stock because like it's either going to get shorted or it's going to jump up or, whatever their argument was. And I'm like, personally, I was like, I'm not doing that. Like that's too, like the popular one, I think it was like what, right before COVID was happening with the whole AMC, thing. Like they're trying to like tell me that. I'm like, that's too much risk for my blood. I don't want to do that. So.
Yeah. And I mean, some of them made money. Did a lot of them lose?
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean my friends?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. It happens. Unfortunately, right? We learned the lessons the hard way. Now, what asset classes do you like? Where do you invest your money nowadays? I know you already said TSP and some of those stocks. Is anything else do you like?
Yeah, the Vanguard stuff, whether it's ETFs or the mutual funds, the total stock market from Vanguard and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
very, tried and true, if you will.
Yeah. Have you gotten into real estate yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not
Is
yet.
that a part of the future moves?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at Washington right now, the state, not DC.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get familiar with that area
Yeah. I
first.
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool because Washington's awesome. Actually, if you go to Washington, we need to talk the long-term care stuff.
Oh, yes.
Same
Yeah.
rules apply. Yeah. So there's a lot of states, for everybody that knows, there's a lot of states with changing laws, and they're bound to go up and due to certain things, right? It all comes down to them. They believe there's programs that benefit people. Okay. If you could tell my audience, and from everything that you learned, whether it's through me or outside, you already said a lot. Is there anything else that you would like to tell the audience? It's like, hey guys, do this or don't do that. Any bit words that you want to pass on as knowledge?
Yeah, just don't be afraid to ask questions. Whether you think you're gonna look dumb or not, I don't mind looking. To be honest, I don't mind looking dumb. I just assume everyone's gonna think I'm dumb, and I'm okay with that. So I could ask questions because I don't think if I did any of those things, I wouldn't have continued to learn, and that doesn't necessarily apply financially either. Like when I first met you, and you're trying to, with the whole like life insurance stuff, I was hesitant.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't believe you per se, I just didn't know, which is why I asked a bunch of questions, and you were able to, explain, some of those things to me. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. And I'll, it's always interesting. People think that it's a negative, and that's why I'm like, bro, I can scam you with anything. Most of you guys, if you're listening, if you have a mutual fund, you're probably getting scammed. It's like,
yeah,
you can get scammed with anything, but if you understand it and it's clear, that you're like, okay, how does this fit in? But that's good. Asking questions. I'm really big on that.
yeah,
Like you always want to be the maybe not the dumbest, but maybe the second dumbest person in the room.
yeah,
Like you right at that point that you're really dumb, but nobody's making fun of you.
yeah, exactly.
You want to be right at that spot. Yeah, that's good. And dude, this was awesome despite the technical issues. So we'll patch it all together. And I hope we do it more. What would you do? What about for young ABMs? What message would you tell them besides asking questions? Maybe financially or not financially. What keys would you tell if a brand new O1 is listening to this and he's like, what would you pass on?
Young AVMs, oh, man.
ABMs are just O1s in the military.
Really consider. Don't make the same mistake that I did. That like you got to have that, new hotness item that you're probably not going to use. Like really think about the things you're going to purchase and utilize, if it's going to be daily or whatever the thing you're going to use it for. Like you're actually going to use it. Don't let it just like collect dust. There are plenty of things that I bought and that I racked up, credit card debt as a young lieutenant that, I had to pay for. Literally. And I didn't realize, like, I was like, oh, I'll just pay it off later. Like, I'll just wait till next paycheck. Next paycheck comes around, I'm still racking the credit card up. And I'm like, next thing I know, 3 months go by and I got like, thousands of dollars in debt. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
Plus the, student loans that I was still paying for at the time. So yeah, I think that's something that's just like, that I would share with those.
How much did you pay in student loans?
I paid about $27,000.
Wow. Are you already done with them?
Yeah, I'm all done with the student loans.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I've spoken to people that are like with $100,000 worth of loans, and it's like, that's a lot.
I know some. Yeah, I know some FGOs that are still paying off their student loans.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah,
That's crazy. So it's crazy how like decisions that you thought was the best for you may not actually be the best for you, but you have no way of saying. And I'm not gonna say one school's better than the other, but it's you almost don't know. But cool, man. This is awesome. I know you and I talk a ton, so I look forward to talking to you some more. I'm gonna post this all over. You don't have a big social media presence yet, but I hope you do. blow that up to fitness stuff. We all need that. So I look forward to talking to you some more. And
Likewise, bro.
yeah, this is a wrap. This podcast is not financial advice, and it only represents the opinions of those participating. Our goal is to get you to your version of financial independence. Please follow and like on every platform.